Hello Proponomics people, and welcome to day 23 of the Advent calendar in December 2023. So today I'm going to be talking about wage price spirals, and this is the longer form explainer video. I'm going to kick off with a bit of a definition of a wage price spiral, so you can probably tell what it sounds like from the name, and it is what it says on the tin here. It's where wage demands are increasing because either the workers perceive there to be a lot of inflation coming, or there's already been a significant bout of inflation. That would be the one that would be particularly relevant now. And they're trying to catch up to the standard of living they were at a couple of years ago. And so what does that mean? It means costs go up for businesses. Now, businesses have obviously got two choices. They can either accede to the wage demands, or they can refuse those wage demands. Now, what informs them in terms of what choice they will make? Well, the tightness or not of the labour market. So how many vacancies are there and how many unemployed people are there? And unemployment at the moment, as I record this, running at 4.2% in the UK. Historically, that's very low, although we have been lower in recent years. We've been down to around about the 3.6% mark. So we have loosened a little from there. But historically, 6% was deemed to be a sufficient figure for there to be nearly full employment in the country. That was within the last 10 years. So the labour market is tight. That gives the workers more collective bargaining power, and therefore it means that their wage demands have to be taken more seriously. So if the businesses do fold, then in order to try and at least maintain their margins, or at least try not to lose money, the businesses find themselves in a position where they need to put their prices up. Now, the good news is the people who are working can afford to pay higher prices because their wages have gone up. But the bad news is they see the prices going up further away from them and they increase their wage demands again. Now, you can understand why the use of the word spiral comes into play here. Now, this is an economically theoretical concept, and it's one of those where it's quite dangerous because it does make good common sense when you think about it. However, we like to look at data and correlation on this channel, and there isn't the world's greatest correlation actually between wages and inflation in itself. So there aren't huge amounts of evidence for the spiral. There have been historical times, especially in the 1970s, where there was a significant blame placed on wages for fueling the inflation that continued throughout the early 1970s. And there was a year when Sainsbury's had to put wages up 35% in total. And there's certainly been times over the last 12 months where there's been companies that have had to do 2 wage rises. However, real household disposable incomes, and that is the one singular metric, if there was one metric you're going to watch when it comes to how well off are people, are improving a fair amount. They've improved significantly in quarter 2 of 2025, and they've improved a bit in quarter 3, even though the economy has now contracted, as we know, by 0.1%. Now, I'm not sure we've ever seen territory like we're going to see next year before, and that's what I find really interesting on this subject. So we're going to see next year, we've got an already enshrined minimum wage increase of 9.8%. We've got average wage increases still running at 7.2 to 7.3% at the moment as I'm recording this. And although it's falling away slightly, services inflation is still running at 6.3%. So you can imagine that prices are still likely to carry on going up for a little while longer, and wage demands are going to be roughly the same. And if minimum wage is going up 9.8, although they say that affects 2.7 million people who get paid the national minimum wage, it affects far more than 2.7 million people because there are a number of people whose salary is anchored to the minimum wage. And it was the case this year that for the civil service, because the pay freezes and austerity has been so severe, that the minimum wage increasing this year meant certain civil service jobs had to be paid more. So some of those civil service jobs next year will have no choice in the legislation but to go up by 9.8%. So we've got baked in at the moment a huge rise in minimum wages. And these past couple of months, we've seen inflation fall, first of all, down to 4.8 and now to 3.9%. If there was another significant fall, and I don't think there will be too many, because in January, apart from anything else, prices are going up again in the energy sector. The price cap is going up again, not down. So that will add a little bit onto everything. A lot, of course, will depend on the ongoing price of oil, but it does seem to be a struggle for oil to break below $70 a barrel, even if it does go down and make transportation cheaper. But we could be in a situation where come April, inflation is, say, 3.5%, and the average wage rises are still 7%. So that would add 3.5% in real terms to people's pay packets, What are they likely to do with that money, especially if it's going into the arms of those who are paid less than others? They are very, very likely to consume it. What does that consumption do? It adds to GDP. Businesses see it as good news. They start to expand. What does this all mean? They can then feel they can afford to pay more. It's expansionary for the economy. It's inflationary for the economy. And this would be an example of some genuine inflation that would be a good economic thing, as long as there isn't mass unemployment because of what's happening with the minimum wage, or simply because the market has changed after we hit the low of 3.6% unemployment some months back. The interesting thing is going to be, of course, we don't know what's going to play out exactly here, but I'll be keeping a very tight eye on wages and prices. And I think this is one of the chief reasons why inflation is not going to behave itself particularly next year, and why I'm still relatively bearish on when the first interest rate cuts will be by the Bank of England. But of course, remember, the mortgage rates are dictated by the bond markets anyway. You can go and check out the videos on day 1 and 2 of the calendar if you don't understand what that is and why. And I'm looking forward to seeing you for the last instalment tomorrow on Christmas Eve, where I'll be talking about how I raise equity for deals as a bit of a Christmas bonus. Thank you.